भाई अब इजराइल को कोई छू नहीं सकता था. Hezbollah में Nasrallah said he used his rocket attacks to put pressure on the Israelis to do a ceasefire, to release the hostages. So suddenly the invincible Israelis started looking very vulnerable. So this wounded lion Netanyahu had no option but to hit back. पहले वो करते हैं targeted assassinations. I would like to describe it now as a regime-threatening strike package. Nasrallah tells them, don't worry, put your mobiles in your boxes. He actually makes a speech. अपने mobiles के boxes में डाली क्योंकि हमारे पास pagers हैं. He doesn't know that in 2022, the Israelis had captured the whole supply chain of pagers. They are also looking to assassinate top Iranian political leadership, like they took out the top leadership of the Nasrallah. And my understanding is that the bunker buster bombs that they have can degrade the facilities but not destroy them. The Iranians are very clear that if you hit my oil installations, I will target all other oil installations in the region. Netanyahu, if he succeeds in this regime-threatening strike package, he will perhaps become the greatest Israeli prime minister ever. But if he fails, so today we'll talk about the Iran-Israel conflict. I mean, the conflict seems to be on everybody's lips. With Netanyahu on steroids, perhaps the conflict could also be entering its existential phase. And it's not only about, exploding pagers, but it also seems to be about a Middle East that is on fire. So this is my understanding of events in the Middle East as they have occurred and how they may prospectively turn out. A useful way to understand the conflict will be perhaps to go back to 1967, when the Israelis executed a spectacular military triumph, and when they defeated Egypt and Jordan. What happened was that military triumph put an end to the challenge mounted by Arab nationalism. और उस victory के बाद Israel was not only did it get far greater wriggle room, maneuver space in the politics of the Middle East, but it also acquired a certain aura of invincibility. भाई अब Israel को कोई छू नहीं सकता था. Its military might was unquestioned and therefore great political payoffs. Now that continued for a while till we come to 1979, when the revolution in Iran brings about another phase. This time the challenge to Israel is from Islamic fundamentalism. Qasem Soleimani, we've all heard of that very fine military and strategic mind. What he does is that he puts in place a suitable geostrategic apparatus. This patron proxy network, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, Shia militias in Iraq, and a very strong weapon ammunition arsenal in Syria. What it does now, or the purpose of this patron proxy network, the octopus and its tentacles, is to challenge Israeli power and also to challenge American military might. You have the Houthis, which are bringing down MQ-9 Reapers. I'm told they are autonomous suicidal boats of the Houthis which are stalking American aircraft carriers. So the challenge is both to Israeli military might and American aircraft carriers. And it gets finessed bit by bit, year by year. But the October attacks of 2003 by the Hamas, they dent the image of Israeli invincibility severely. And thereafter what happens, we've all heard of October 2003, but uske baad, these missile rocket assaults of Iran, Hezbollah and Houthis, even the Houthis had started firing missiles and drones which were hitting the heart of Tel Aviv, traveling 2,600 kilometers. Hezbollah mein Nasrallah said he used his rocket attacks to put pressure on the Israelis to do a ceasefire, to release the hostages. So it was just not rocket attacks for the heck of it. And from the less populated areas, these rocket attacks started moving to the heart of Tel Aviv. They threatened the Mossad headquarters. Some bombs landed on or near Israel's most famous intelligence unit, 8200, in the Gilead neighborhood of Tel Aviv. And the rocket assaults also started targeting Ain Shebar, which is the hub of Israel's, interceptive command and control system. Ain Shebar is that unit which takes care of the launch of Iron Domes, Arrow 2, Arrow 3, David Sling. And I told you the Mossad headquarters also got targeted. So suddenly the invincible Israelis started looking very vulnerable. Netanyahu was helpless, hapless, and also under great political pressure. So this wounded lion Netanyahu had no option but to hit back. And what was the purpose of hitting back? Degrading the proxies. So whatever was done to Hamas in Gaza, their 24 battalions, I'm told about half of them have been decimated, though some have, restructured. And the purpose is to dismantle the whole military wherewithal. So we are seeing what are they doing in South Lebanon, a ground invasion to neutralize the Radawan force. They are also now determined to take the fight to the head of the axis, the octopus. So Houthis pe baad mein kuch hoga. Radawan force in Lebanon, see what they have done to Hamas. They have decimated the Hezbollah. And I would like to describe it now as a regime-threatening strike package. They want to bring down this regime headed by Ayatollah Khamenei. Whether they can do it or not is, of course, a different matter. But here we must admire that Israeli statecraft has been very smart. We have seen the wile and guile and therefore the great successes. पहले वो करते हैं targeted assassinations. They target the mobile network of these leaders, and 16 leaders have been taken down, from Raj Shukla to the chief of Hezbollah, Nasrallah. 16 top-class leaders, I'm told 3 generations of leadership. So first they target the mobiles. And once the leaders are vulnerable in the mobiles, Nasrallah tells them, don't worry, put your mobiles in your boxes. He actually makes a speech. अपने mobiles के boxes में डाली क्योंकि हमारे पास pagers हैं. He doesn't know that in 2022, the Israelis had captured the whole supply chain of pagers. There is a company called Back Consulting, which had collaborated with a Taiwan front company, bought all these mobiles, their supply chain, and replaced one of the batteries with explosives. So when the leadership of Hezbollah migrates to these pagers, they explode. So do the walkie-talkies. Now you have not only hit the leadership, 16 of them, but also the rank and file. And what is really admirable in the military sense is that when these people abandon their command and control, the communication network, and go to what they think are safe headquarters, Israeli insiders, perhaps moles, give this information, and you have these Israeli strikes which take them out. Much like Nasrallah's successor Musawi in 1992 was also taken out by an Israeli strike. So we must give credit to this whole trade craft of targeted assassinations. It doesn't happen in a day. It is all this 8200, 9300, space imagery, the aircraft, Americans and British flying out from Cyprus, all this has come together. Now, that having been done, this is incredible sophistry. It has encouraged now Netanyahu to complete this whole operation, which is taking out the patron proxy network. So, abhi South Lebanon mein, they are doing a ground invasion against the Radawan force, against the Hezbollah, and they are looking at what targets to hit in Iran. Now, what could these targets be? First, they have to carry out what is called SIAD, suppression of air defense, which is the very dense air defense network of Iran. They have to clear the flight path because they have to fly over Syria, Jordan, number of countries. It's about 1,300 kilometers. And they are doing it. They are hitting AD air bases in Syria. वो रास्ता साफ कर रहे हैं. And their final targets most probably will be military bases like the Isfahan air base, which is the missile arsenal of the Iranians, or their oil installations. And finally, their nuclear facilities. They are also looking to assassinate top Iranian political leadership, like they took out the top leadership of the Nasrallah. Now, it may seem very doubtful as of now, but who thought the Israelis would take out 16 leaders of the Hezbollah? They are capable of doing it. So targeted assassinations, oil facilities, nuclear facilities. Let's talk about nuclear facilities. So we all know that their main, the whole nuclear program is being done at two places, Natanz and Fordo. Now, Natanz is a deep underground nuclear facility, very difficult to target. So is Fordo, tucked into a mountain hideout. Now, Israel too, if its fighters have to take out these nuclear facilities, they have to fly over Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, Turkey. Not easy. I'm told the Israelis have a total fighter aircraft inventory of 340 aircraft. In a nuclear destruction package, about 100 aircraft will be employed. They have to take out the very dense local air defense around these nuclear reactors. And my understanding is that the bunker buster bombs that they have can degrade the facilities but not destroy them. To destroy the nuclear facility, it will have to be a joint Israeli nuclear attack. And it can only be achieved through the MOP, that is the massive ordnance penetrator, which can be launched only by the B-2 bomber. So it has to be a joint US attack, which seems to be very unlikely. Now, what is the current incentive structure between the Biden administration and the Iranians? So Biden administration has told them that we will, not impose the economic sanctions very vigorously, but don't move towards the nuclear option. Don't greenlight the nuclear option. How far is Iran away from the nuclear option? From all accounts, it appears that they are just 2 weeks away from weaponizing their fissile material. And once they do that, it will take them about 1.5 years to put the delivery mechanism in place, which is the missiles. So that is how far they are. So my conclusion is Israelis on their own, I don't think so. A joint Indo-US attack, likely. What could be the responses to the oil installations? The Iranians are very clear that if you hit my oil installations, I will target all other oil installations in the region, which is a quasi-nuclear option, because look at the impact it will have on global oil flows, on the global economy. It could impact India too. So all these options are not very easy. The strategic consequences, I'm sure, are being weighed by Netanyahu and the Americans. So there is great pressure on Netanyahu to do all this. But there are problems. There is the associated politics. Netanyahu, if he succeeds in this regime-threatening strike package, he will perhaps become the greatest Israeli prime minister ever. But if he fails, there are equal chances the bribery charges which are lurking back home could catch up on him. Ayatollah Khamenei, I'm sure he's not in his palace. He's hiding at various places all over. And just for a moment, if we assume that the targeting of the Iranian top leadership succeeds, it could, that dam of discontent which is latent could burst. So there are all kinds of possibilities which are tucked behind this. Look at the one last point about the broader geopolitics. Despite all his belligerence, Netanyahu has tiptoed clear of the Russians and the Chinese. But this may begin to change. Look at Egypt. Having been denied the F-16s, it is now turning towards China and Russia for its weapons. There is talk, there is no evidence, but talk of far deeper Iranian-Russian defense collaboration. Putin has refused to take calls of Netanyahu. Shoigu was in Tehran coordinating their air defenses. The Russians have intercepted some of the missiles being fired into Lebanon. So a broader Russia, China, Iran axis, which is doing wonderfully in Ukraine and other theaters, could also be beginning to gather steam to counter Indo-US relations. So see, look at the broader impact on geopolitics. There is also the possibility, Israel could succeed beautifully, but there is the possibility that it gets stuck in the ground invasion in Lebanon and it degenerates into a strategic quagmire. We must not forget, Israelis have not done too well in ground invasions. 1982 they launched, the Hezbollah was created. 2006 Condoleezza Rice said that these are the birth pangs of a new Middle East. it turned out to be a messy abortion. So these are all the consequences, but one thing is certain, we are looking for very exciting days ahead, and those of us in the business of national security have to keep a very watchful eye. From the events in the Middle East, may I make a small prayer to those that look at, defense, statecraft in the Indian context. I think the biggest lesson for us is that we must view what is happening in the arena of air defense, missile defense, drones and missiles, and our own drone missile air defense complex, I think, deserves an upgrade or a relook by an order of magnitude. May I also request all of you to like, share and subscribe to Chanakya Dialogue.